Well, very good morning, everyone. It's George Bayruthi from FS Securities giving you the market report for Tuesday morning, the 22nd of March, 2023. So the first thing we do, we go to the daily offshore updates. That's actually on the first page of our articles that is presented every morning. So we click on daily offshore update. We get here and we find that the Dow was down 0.6% and the S&P 500 was down 0.1% and the Nasdaq was down 0.4%. BHP was up 4.1% in New York and Rio was up 3%. Tesla up 1.5%, Apple nearly 1%, and Meta, which is the parent of Facebook, was down 2.3%. And Netflix was down 1.6%. In Europe, the Stoxx 50 index, which comprises most major European markets, was down 0.5%. In London, the FTSE 100 was up 0.5%, and the DAX, which is the biggest component in that Stoxx 50, was down 0.6%. And the same thing with the French, was down 0.6%. The futures are showing that the market most likely will open 80 points higher to 7,316. Now let me see what happened in the market this morning. We're going to put the chart and we see where we are. Well, here we see, in here we can see that the market is now 87 point higher. That is actually 1.2% higher than what anticipated. Okay, we'll come back to this charts and we see what happens. Gold was up 0.4% to 1929 US per ounce. Brent crude oil up 6% and West Texas crude oil up 5% to nearly 110 US dollars per barrel. Iron ore price $147.90, that is down 2.3%. The day before was 151.4 US. And you can see it's been hovering between the 154 and 147 or 145. It's been sitting around that range for quite a while. The Australian dollar is slightly below the 74 US cents. And in terms of the yield, the US yield is actually, you can see here, 2.1%. That's a 2-year yield, which is the highest level for several months. The Australian, on the other hand, is also 1.37%, which is also the highest for quite some time. Just remember that several months ago was down to 0.15, so it's actually more than 1% higher, and that is the 2-year yield. The 5-year yield in the US, 2.32, which is, it's interesting that the 10-year yield is actually below the 5-year yield. So that's actually, there is discrepancy here. On the other hand, the Australian situation, the 2-year yield is below the 5-year yield and the 5-year yield is below the 10-year yield. However, the 10-year yield, you can see here at 2.6%. It's the highest level for a long time. And you can see that the lowest level for several months was 1.76. That is nearly 0.8% higher. And for those people who are borrowing money to buy a home or an apartment or real estate, that is actually more than 0.5% higher. So an anticipation that the 10-year yield will affect the cash rate probably after the election. I don't think it's going to happen before the election. Bitcoin this morning, 41,200, and that converts to approximately 55,700 Australian dollars. Remember that the lowest level in the US was 36,100, and that was nearly for almost nearly a year. And the lowest level in Australia was 51,100, and we're very close to that level, but we're still above it. Now we go to, we can see here in terms of 4-day change, It's very important to compare what happens overnight with what happened in combination with the 4 days together. You can see that the Dow, despite 0.6% drop overnight, put the 4 days together, with the market is actually up 3% for the Dow, 4.5% for the S&P 500, and 6.4% for the Nasdaq. And the European markets all up. And when you look at our market with 2.5%, and of course with the 1.2% rise this morning, that obviously shows that we are in a very strong stead. As I mentioned, the futures market was showing 80 points higher, while we're exceeding that. Gold, $7.20 US per ounce. However, when we look at the 4 days together, gold is nearly $19 down, that's US per ounce. Silver was up 12 cents or 0.5%, and copper is nearly 4% higher over 4 days. Brent, that's 13% higher over 4 days, and well, most of it the last 2 days. Well, we've seen actually put it together, 4 days we are 13.6% higher. West Texas crude oil 15.7% higher over 4 days. The grain, wheat, $35 down, that's US per bushel, that is down 3.1%. Soybean, on the other hand, thanks to China still buying American soybeans, 1.9% higher. Corn, remember a lot of corn comes from Ukraine, down 1.8%. That's strange because I expect it to be higher. And the Australian dollar, slightly below 74 when I mentioned it earlier, and that is 1.5% higher over 4 days. All right, now we go to the weekly. We can see over the weeks, the Dow is still high. The American market was high over 3 weeks, and the Australian market, we were up 4% on Saturday in comparison to the last 3 weeks. All right, we move forward to now we go to the home page, and now I'm going to go to stocks with higher volume. You can see here, doing that a couple of days ago, Macquarie Bank pushed up 1.7%, and that was actually with extreme volume. The average volume is 1 million transaction per day. Well, a couple of days ago the volume was 2.5 million, with an increase in the price of 1.7%. That to me is actually an indication that Macquarie is very, very strong. Look what happened to Macquarie today and the last couple of days. We go here to put Macquarie. Macquarie is up 1%, and you look at the daily chart, has gone from 175 around that level, 173 the low, the open, and now we've got 197. That's nearly 10%, but it hit this bar here, that line, which is actually the 100-day moving average. There is a possibility we might see a reversal. It's interesting that the 50-day moving average, that's the orange, is below the 100, and that was due to what happened in this area here, and very slowly coming back up. And you can see the 9-day moving average has crossed above the 21. So let's see what happens if it crosses above the 100-day moving average. We might test the 205, and you never know, it might even go towards the previous peak in that's actually January 22, early this year. Well, there is a potential for Macquarie Bank. Apart from Macquarie Bank, we go to Dexus Units, Transurban 2.7%. The price went up with nearly doubled, more than double the volume above the average. This is the average volume over 50 days. And you can see here 13 million in one day. CSL, nothing here. Lend-Lease, 2.2% price rise, and the volume was 50% higher above the average. In the mid-cap, for those who are more excited by the challenge, the price of Cedar Woods was up 5.6%, and look at the volume. The average daily volume is 227,000. Well, in one day, we've seen 2.2 million transaction. Let's see CWP on the chart. See what happened to today. CWP. Okay, let's put it up. CWP. Today is slightly down, but look, it had a very good rise over from $4.40, the lowest, to $5.20. That's 80, that's 20% rise. Profit taking here. But nevertheless, it's quite a reasonable transactions. The question is, now we go and see the fair value for Cedar Woods and see what it's all about. Alright, well, that's all from us here. Happy trading and enjoy your trade, and hopefully you make some money.